I'm going to talk a bit about mic polarity on stage miking. Alright, so we got our drum set. Let's say we've got a kick drum here. Got a drummer that sits right here on a drum throne. Giant drum fill. And in this drum fill are some big speakers. And we'll put a mic over here. And we'll plug this into a mixing board. Kick drum pedal goes this way, hits a drum, creates a positive pressure wave on the microphone. The positive pressure wave comes in, positive pressure wave goes into the amp. Positive pressure wave, if your system is wired correct, will create a positive pressure wave here, and your speaker will move outward. So we have the speaker moving towards the drummer, and we have the drum head moving away from the drummer. Then the head naturally rebounds backwards, creates a negative wave, comes all the way around, creates a negative wave. So our first experience is speaker moving towards with the drum head moving away, and the next experience is the drum head bouncing back and the speaker moving back. Let's take a look at this scenario here. We have this one moving towards, that one moving away, this one moving towards, that one moving away. Think of your home stereo speakers. What if we wired them like that? So this one moved away from you and this one moved towards you. They would be out of phase, out of polarity. Ideally, for maximum low-end summation coupling, we would have them both moving away at the same time, or both moving towards you at the same time, which is the opposite scenario of what we're seeing here with a properly wired system, properly wired monitors. What do we do to correct this? What we want is away and toward. If we hit the polarity switch in the mixing board, which is down here, then he hits the drum or she hits the drum. It creates a positive pressure. It goes all the way through. It goes into the polarity switch, which turns that positive pressure into a negative pressure, a negative voltage. Negative voltage comes into here, and this moves away. So when the drum head moves away, the speaker moves away. When the drum head moves back the other way, the speaker moves back. Now we have an in-phase or in-polarity situation. On a kick drum, properly wired system, if you want proper summation, you need to reverse polarity of that drum. Alright, so we looked at the kick drum polarity. Does that mean that everything's out of polarity? Well, it turns out, with a kick drum, we are miking the back of the head. When the impact hits it, it puts a positive pressure wave on the mic. We've got our snare drum and our drummer dude over here. Drummer, real tall, skinny guy, big long leg. We got a drum fill back there, and he hits the drum or she hits the drum. It moves down and away. We got a little mic over here. Creates a negative pressure wave. The drum is moving away from the drummer, and the negative pressure wave causes the speaker to move away from the drummer. So your snare drum's in polarity in its natural state with a properly wired system. So what this comes down to is, if you're miking the rear or non-stick or non-beater side, you want to hit the polarity reverse. If you're miking the stick side or the beater side, if you put a mic on the front of the head, you do not use the polarity reverse. If you want your drum monitor to be in polarity for maximum impact and minimum feedback. So why does that matter? Let's go back to the kick drum example. And there's our kick drum. And here's our drum monitor. When this drum moves away and you have an out of polarity situation and the drum fill speaker is moving towards, the drum head moves away, the speaker moves towards, it actually pushes and impacts the drum head and moves it farther away, which then creates more positive voltage, which moves the speaker farther out, which moves the head farther away. When the head finally reaches maximum or whatever resonance is hit, it starts to come back, creates a negative voltage, and the speaker pulls back, the head pulls back. So what you get is this resonant situation, and that resonant situation is what we call feedback. And so in order to minimize feedback, we would want these to be canceling each other out. When this head moves towards, it's creating an impulse that moves the speaker towards. When the head's moving away, it creates a speaker. By hitting the polarity reverse, we actually can use the speaker to dampen the head slightly and minimize feedback and increase impact for the drummer. Alright, so that's a pretty simple setup there. Hope that makes sense. How do we know what it is? How do we test it? Pretty simple stuff there too. Basically just turn it on. Kick drum, we turn on with no EQ. We turn this mic on and we turn it up in drum fill. We'll call it the DF. And we'll bring it up till it starts to feedback till we hit FB. and we might touch the head a little bit. We get a little feedback on it. Then we will hit the polarity reverse button on the channel. If the feedback, when it's just at that verge of feedback, it just starts to take off. If the feedback increases, then we hit this button again because it made it worse. And if the feedback reduces, then we leave it in. All right, so the number one thing you do, number one, is determine kick polarity. Because once you've determined the kick drum polarity versus the drum fill, you can now build your polarity system for the rest of the stage, or for at least the rest of the kit. You'll find that some monitor rigs are pin 2 plus and some are pin 3 plus. Pin 3 systems are polarity reversed from pin 2 systems, monitor systems. Determine your kick polarity, and from there we can build the rest of the system. Alright, so now that we've determined our kick drum polarity, let's say our kick drum has to be polarity reversed when we mic the back of the drum, non-beater side. And we have 2 kick mics, so the second kick mic will polarity reverse. Next mic in my mic chart is a snare top. That's not going to be polarity reverse, that'll be in. Next one's going to be snare bottom. We're miking the non-stick side of the head, so we'll reverse that. Hi-hat will be in polarity because I'm miking the stick side. What do I got next? Rack, I typically mic from the top. If I'm miking from the top, it'll be in phase. Floor drum, same thing. Ride cymbals. Typically I mic my ride cymbals from underneath. Non-beater side, I typically polarity reverse them. Now, I'm not running the cymbals into the drum fill. It's not really going to make any difference for the drummer whether polarity reverse or not, and for monitor system, you might not be using them. At front of house, I run this, even though I'm not using the drum fill, I use this same polarity reverse scenario, whether I'm doing monitors or front of house, in order to keep everything polarity correct. Pretty much what I do is, if I'm miking the stick side, it's the opposite polarity as if I'm miking the non-stick side. And I determine my starting point off my kick drum, and I go ahead and click my polarity reverse switches accordingly from that point forward. If I'm mixing front of house and it's unknown, I will just start with the kicks reversed, snare bottom reversed, and underheads, and any underhead cymbals reversed. This polarity adventure doesn't end there. Let's say we have a bass rig. We'll put an SVT bass rig there, and we'll put a mic on it, wire it into something, and we'll put a wedge over here. And we'll run the bass into the wedge, the bass pumping out of there. Does polarity matter for this mic or for this DI box that's coming off the back? Absolutely. If this is in polarity with that, when the bass player stands right in the middle, we will have a happy bass player. If these are out of polarity, then one of them's going the wrong way. You'll actually get a dead spot midway between the wedge and the bass if they were both at the same volume. Obviously, or typically, your wedge is not at the same volume as your bass amp, but it will cause a dropout in level at the equidistant point between the two. How do you test that? Pretty simple. You turn the bass rig down, turn the wedge up so they're about the same level. You have someone, or preferably you, stand right in the middle. Have someone back by the monitor board and have them hit the polarity switch. Point your thumb up, in polarity. When you point your thumb down, have them switch it. Listen for which one's louder. When you hear the louder sound, run with that one, and you will have solve that polarity issue. Now, DI boxes can be either way as well. So, and microphones are not guaranteed to all be pin 2 or pin 3 plus. You will find abnormalities, aberrations in microphones. In a perfect world, you test all your mics and make sure they're all positive pressure equals positive voltage on pin 2. This can also be used to your advantage in other ways. Let's say that you have you want to create a hole. You can actually hit that polarity reverse and create that hole. Typically, that's not the case, but having an understanding of that is important. With guitar wedges, not as important and much more difficult to test. Continuing on with the adventures in polarity. We did the kick drum, we did the bass guitar. What about our happy singer dude who also wears an in-ear system? And we got a microphone here. Polarity of the in-ear system is also relevant and important, although it may not seem so at first glance. When you sing, when you talk, you hear your voice from 2 different angles. You hear it from it leaving your mouth, coming around, and coming into your ears from the sound of the room. And you also hear it internally, the natural vibration of your body and the resonance which creates this tone of your voice. When you're singing into in-ears, you've cut out the room sound. You don't hear the sound of your voice coming out, but you have not cut out the internal resonance of the sound of your voice in your body. if the mic is in polarity, when you sing and your ears are in, you'll get an extension of low end, a summation of the low end that you're hearing from your in-ears with the natural resonance of your body. And if it's out of polarity, you'll get a cancellation of what you're hearing in your ears with the natural resonance of your body. That only affects a person hearing themselves sing. Polarity has no effect on, let's say, my voice into somebody else's in-ears or somebody else's in-ears into mine. So it's only on the person singing, listening to themselves sing. So in order to test that, the only way, or the easiest way to test it is to put in-ears in, to go up to the mic, have your own voice run to those in-ears, and again you balance level. You turn them up until the natural resonance of your voice is about the same volume as the sound you're getting in your in-ears. And you look for a summation, and again you look at somebody running the monitor board, and you have to be out on stage to do it. You thumbs up, thumbs down, polarity switch, in polarity, out of polarity, and you flip back and forth until you hear a preferable summation, assuming you can hear that. Now you're going to find that with an analog board, that is going to be much more discernible than with a digital board. As an analog board, even though the belt packs are wireless, it's almost instantaneous. There is significantly less than a millisecond of delay, maybe even less than a microsecond of delay. It's instantaneous. The sound coming out of your voice. It takes longer for it to leave your lips to get to the microphone than it takes to get from the microphone all the way around and back into your ears again. So you can get perfect summation of those tones. With a digital system, you're going to get about 1.5 to 2.5 milliseconds of delay from here before it gets back into there. If you want to hear what that effect is, then go to about a foot away from the wall. And you can actually hear it just holding your hands up. That summation differential is very noticeable. Some band members, some artists, and not to others. Polarity does apply to in-ear systems. It can be tested relatively easily. And all right, that should do it. Hope all that helps, and I'll try and do some more videos on sound stuff soon.